Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. First, tonight, people stayed at home across the Democratic Republic of Congo, leaving troops on patrol as ghost cities face tension peaks before President Joseph Kabila's official mandate ends with no election in sight. Also, since an agreement was signed back in February, a fragile peace exists in the disputed territory of Abyei, which lies between South Sudan and Sudan. Nevertheless, long-standing tensions between rival communities persist. And we head to Madagascar, where hostility towards Chinese businesses is on the rise in the wake of the reopening of a Chinese-operated gold mine. First, in DR Congo, there was tension on Monday as the deadline for the official end of President Joseph Kabila's second mandate approached and the leader looked set to stay on. Kinshasa was mainly quiet, except for patrolling troops. Nevertheless, hundreds of student protesters demanded his exit after 15 years at the top. At least 41 activists were arrested at rallies in the eastern city of Goma, and anger even sparked protests in Congolese communities as far afield as London, Cape Town, and Brussels. Elections have been postponed until at least 2018, and critics have long accused Kabila of manipulating matters to retain his grip on power. Thomas Nicolon brings us more from the capital.
Only a few hours to go before the end of Joseph Kabila's second mandate, and there is still a part of the opposition that wants him to step down by midnight. But one of Joseph Kabila's advisors held a press conference today, and he wanted to make everything clear. Joseph Kabila will remain in power.
The
President will stay on, as the Constitutional Court has said he should, until there are elections, and we have a new elected president. We thought that the 19th of December would be a difficult day, but it hasn't been. We hope that things will remain calm. Security forces are doing everything they can to maintain this calm, and so we don't go through a similar situation as we did in September.
Today was a very quiet day in Kinshasa, except at the Unicon, at the University of Kinshasa, where the situation was very tense. One of the entrances was blocked by the police and the army, and the other entrance was blocked by a very angry crowd, and it was very difficult for journalists to work. We were threatened several times at that entrance, and we had to flee from the area. It is hard to know if these people were students or not, but it was impossible to get inside of the university to get a grasp of what was going on and why the university was being blocked the way it was. Another incident that happened today is the arrest of opposition leader Frank Diongo. The government says he was holding captive a couple of members of the security forces, but Frank Diongo says that he was only defending himself. One thing is for certain, there is still tension in Kinshasa only a few hours before the end of Joseph Kabila's second mandate.
Thomas Nicolon there for us in Kinshasa. Now, the African Union is investigating allegations that peacekeepers in Somalia killed at least 11 civilians in two separate incidents over the weekend. Elders accused troops of opening fire on a town in the Lower Shabelle region on Sunday. 6 reportedly died there. Elsewhere, people in the town of Marka say that an AU armoured vehicle smashed into a home there after a bomb attack targeted its convoy. Now, the AU's outgoing chief has called for more to be done to break with the remnants of colonialism in parts of Africa. Chairwoman Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma will be handing over the reins after deciding not to run for a second four-year term. Now, on Monday, she delivered the first State of the Continent address in Durban, in the last time she addresses the media before leaving office next month.
There are still some pockets of Africa that still need to be decolonized, and that is the Chagos archipelago of Mauritius. There are some islands around Mauritius which are still occupied. The Comorian island of Mayotte is still occupied. And of course, the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara is still elusive.
In Nigeria, 2 girls have been blamed for a suicide bombing in the northeastern city of Maiduguri. Police say the teenagers detonated their explosives when they were stopped to be searched. Now, the area has suffered several similar attacks from Boko Haram extremists recently. Last week, at least 1 person was killed when 2 girls, thought to be as young as 7, carried out a double detonation in the city. At least 20,000 people have been killed in Nigeria's northeast since Boko Haram's insurgency began in 2009. Well, since an agreement was signed back in February, a fragile peace does exist in the disputed territory of Abyei, which lies between Sudan and South Sudan. Nevertheless, long-standing tensions between rival communities persist. Many of those displaced by violence are still reluctant to return.
The region of Abyei is currently very dry. That doesn't prevent it from being a strategic area. It's a contested territory between Sudan and South Sudan, claimed by 2 groups. The Dinka Gok residents are allied to South Sudan, while the Miseria people are loyal to Sudan. An attack by Sudanese forces on Abyei in 2011 displaced the majority of the Dinka population.
If the peace process goes well, we will return. Because Abyei is our home, this here is not our home. If there are no more attacks, we'll return immediately.
Last month, the 2 communities agreed to establish a common market.
We, the 2 communities, need to work together. There are no differences between us, Dinka and Miseria. If there are divisions, we need to work on them and come together to share what we have.
The UN Security Council has called on Sudan and South Sudan to resume negotiations immediately on the final status of Abyei. The Council voted to extend the mandate of the peacekeeping force in the region until May 2017.
One of the largest hydroelectric plants in Africa has officially opened in Ethiopia. The Gib 3 dam is part of Addis Abeba's plans to up its power-producing capacity in the hopes of exporting some to neighbouring nations. The installation will double the country's energy output. But critics fear that it will reduce water flow and devastate fisheries relying on the Oromo River. Now, the dam was funded in part by the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, which stepped in with a $500 million loan after the African Development Bank turned down a request for backing over concerns about the project's environmental impact. Well, finally, we turn to Madagascar, where hostility towards Chinese businesses is on the rise. The tensions have been sparked by protests over the reopening of a Chinese-operated gold mine.
And even before it was opened, workers fled this Chinese gold mining operation in Madagascar after fierce local opposition.
The company thinks we have the right to stay, but for the sake of social appeasement, we preferred to withdraw.
The mining company had secured a 40-year licence, but buckled in the face of relentless protests. Locals said they were worried about the impact on the local farming industry.
The country's not for sale. Love can't be bought. Madagascar belongs to the Madagascans.
China is Madagascar's largest trading partner and has built roads, hotels and hospitals with 800 Chinese businesses and 60,000 Chinese nationals moving to the island. The Chinese say 90% of jobs created have gone to local people, but many Madagascans are sceptical and there's growing hostility towards the new arrivals.
I think that's the problem for Chinese people doing business abroad. They like to join up with the Chinese community. They don't know foreigners. They don't know Madagascans. They don't know how the locals speak, how they communicate together. So they stay within the Chinese community.
Keen to maintain good relations, the Madagascan president has praised Beijing's helping hand. But this is a gold rush not everybody believes in.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.